in my opinion, in our school, I don't think that there's enough inclusivity when it comes to people that have disabilities. To give an example, people who have been sent emails, the official emails in school, there's no way for them to read it out unless they have accessibility features that can speak out and all that.
The website should have, let's say, chat box, things that can communicate so that people who can't see, at least they can hear what the website is saying. We really need to practice the aspect of including people in our conversation. Because when you imagine you're talking, just normal friends talking around, and there's someone who can't be able to understand, even from your own perspective, like you're somewhere and you're not able to understand the language that they're talking about, you'd feel left out. So we really need to learn how to, want to practice more of including people in our conversations, and sign language is one way of doing so.
Welcome for today's episode on We Fit. Your host, Mkaziri Eid. We Fit is a program that talks about disability inclusion, and today on disability inclusion, we are going to have a guest who is venturing on a sign language. She'll tell us more about herself and how she got herself to do sign language interpretation. Welcome and introduce yourself.
Okay, thank you. My name is Lichina Ann. I'm a sign language interpreter. I learned sign language in 2021, and the reason to why I ventured into sign language is because back in my village I had like 3 neighbors or so who had deaf children, and the deaf children, they used to hide the kids. The kids were not getting information, and the mother was feeling very bad about the situation, and every time the mother could try and get pregnant again to have maybe a kid who is normal, but it was not happening. Now her kids were, all of them were deaf, and the mother was feeling so bad about that experience. So I used to look at them and I'm like, they are just depriving the children their opportunity to education, to information, and to everything. That is what pushed me into sign language, so that I can break the barriers in communication, and for the kids also to get education, like to live life as other people, like in a normal way.
Wow.
Yeah, thank you.
That is really actually touching. I didn't know why you had to do sign language, and actually it's very interesting when we get to see persons who are doing sign language. They either have a relative or they have a first-hand experience. And so it takes really a heart to do that. And maybe let me ask you, what are you doing right now, Anne?
Right now I'm a 4th year student at the University of Nairobi, and I'm pursuing Bachelor in Arts. Specifically, I'm majoring in linguistics. Because I thought maybe because I'm dealing with sign language, I can get something if I do linguistics. I can even get to know like why someone should have sign language in order to break, because linguistics is more of communication, same as to sign language. So if you merge them together, you get the concept and how you can deal with both of them when you are interpreting, or maybe when you are dealing with the deaf people. Yes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's interesting. And apart from actually getting to pursue linguistics, I know you have benefited under a university program called the Work Study Program,
yes,
where
yes.
you are able now to use your skill for sign language interpretation.
Yes.
So
true.
maybe like how did you get to hear of this?
I get to hear about Work Study Program when I was in my 1st year. Immediately I was done with sign language. I felt like now I've learned sign language, where can I practice the skill? And then I met Dean, who told me that we normally have an office which deals with interpreters, with people with disability. It's like an inclusion office which can help people who have disabilities, and they can really benefit from it. So I got an interest because I really wanted to know what sign language is. Apart from learning it, I needed to practice it. That is when I came to the office, and then I requested for work study, for them to give me an opportunity to apply and practice what I had already learned. That is how I got myself there, and I'm really appreciating for the services and the training that I'm getting from the work study. It is really of help to me.
Oh, wow. And just a funny question is, I know by enrolling at the University of Nairobi, you came in to study linguistics, and then all of a sudden you tell your parents you want to do something in sign language. How was the reaction?
It was not easy. Actually, my family was like, in fact, they even say they can't pay my school fees for doing an extra thing, because how can that help a community? They were really asking me. So I just got money from my help.
Oh.
Yes, the money that I used to get from help, that is the money I used to pay my school fees for sign language. And then they even never know that I did the course. Like they didn't know that I'm done even with the course. No, they even didn't know, because I saw there was a lot of hinges, and then they were asking, how can I get help, which I will repay later, to study something that is not even beneficial to the community. But now, because my passion was there, I said let me just go with my passion. That is what drove me into doing sign language, apart from linguistics.
Oh, wow, that's interesting. And actually it is a show on how inclusion works, because inclusion is not only about persons with disability getting out there, but also the society getting to know what they go through. And basically in the area for sign language is on communication barriers, and actually it is a great thing that you get to learn a third language apart from the language that you already had. And how does it marry with your course?
It marry with my course in a lot of things. Like, you see, we study culture. Like in linguistics, we invent languages. Maybe, for example, we have Kalenjin languages, Luya languages. There is a way they pronounce their words, and the culture, like the way how they do their things. Now it gets to intermarry with sign language. How? Because deaf people have got their own culture. Like, for example, they see it in a circular way, like the way they do their things and the way they communicate with their eyes is very different. Although it intermarries each other, but it is kind of different, but it's the same thing, because like we are looking at the cultures. We look at normal people cultures, and then we also look at the cultures of the deaf people, so we get to know how we can deal with both situations in a goodwill as a linguist.
Oh, nice. That's a very nice way. And just to ask, from your experience being at the work study program at the University of Nairobi, how many students maybe, or how have you interacted with deaf persons?
Personally, I've really interacted with a lot of deaf people, not only at work study, also outside there. I do interact with deaf people a lot. At first, it was not that easy, because you see, an interpreter is a needed but unwanted person. So at times, you get that this person really wants the information, but he doesn't want to share what he really wants you to say, because maybe he or she doesn't have confidence in you, or maybe they just have their own issues. So you get like passing the right information is not that easy, because maybe the person feels that this information is very confidential, I can't share it. So you get that you are interpreting, but now you feel there's some information you're leaving out, but it's just because of the person. Maybe the person you're interpreting with doesn't have confidence in you. That is the challenge I had before, but now at least as I get to know more deaf and interact with them, I get to learn more about their culture, and that now I can say I'm neutral.
Oh, nice. And now you've just brought up something very interesting. Apart from the work study, you're also interacting with the deaf people outside there. Does it mean it's a mean of you can also earn out of interpretation outside the university?
I don't know. I surely don't know. For me, I do sign language as just to help, to break the barrier in communication. So for example, maybe I'm just talking and then I meet a deaf person who really needs my help. I'm happy to help. I normally help where necessary. It's not like I'm doing sign language for me to get money, you know. I'm just doing it from a human understanding that someone needs to get information, someone needs to be normal in just a normal way. So I also do interpretation at SEK, which I can't we are not even paid. We are just doing it to help people get the word of God, like just to make sure some people with disabilities are getting information. Yeah.
Okay, fine. And maybe you can tell our audience from your experience on the various maybe kind of deaf persons you've met, because to my knowledge I know there are various categories, and when people meet deaf persons out there, they wonder how to approach. Do all of them, let's say, can they all mouth read? Do they all depend on sign language alone? You can tell our viewers maybe to understand.
Deaf people they are not the same, like they are not the same. We have people who are not born deaf. They grew up and then maybe they got sick and then they became deaf. Now for such category, for them they can even mouth read. They are deaf, yes. Some can even talk, but they are not hearing. Meaning maybe there is something that affected their hearing ability along the way when they are growing up. Now we have different categories. We have people who are half deaf, and we have people who are fully deaf, and then we have people who I don't know how to put it. We have people who are just deaf, but they understand everything. They are just like normal people. They can operate everything like a normal person, but the person is a deaf person.
Oh.
Yes.
Oh, okay, fine. And maybe getting back to the university fraternity, have you interacted with the deaf students, and how is it?
Yeah.
Maybe in your class before you even go to interpretation?
Yeah, I met some deaf people when I was doing my sign language. In 2021, when I had just ventured into sign language, but now I didn't know how to speak to them that like fluently because I was still a learner. But along the way, I met with students who are learning here at the university, and we try to talk. They try to tell me what they are doing, and they try to tell me to help out if maybe they're having challenges. And for me, I can say it has been an amazing thing because I'm doing it from my heart, so I feel so nice.
Okay.
Actually, I feel nice.
Oh, nice one. And maybe what is the difference between interpretation maybe outside and in the education sector?
Interpretation outside, you interpret the concept, like the concept. You use KSL, Kenya Sign Language, signs. You are using signs. Like for example, if it is subject verb, you use subject verb agreement. But now when it comes to education setup, you just sign English to make sure the person, even if the deaf person is taking notes, he understands what he or she is writing.
Maybe you can entice our viewers. What's the difference? What do you mean by saying KSL is done differently, which means Kenyan Sign Language, and this other one is English?
Okay,
are they speaking
in English,
a different language?
No, it is not a different language. It's just because deaf has their own way of talking. As same to us normal people, we also have our own way of talking. Like for example, as we speak English, and in English there is an agreement known as subject verb agreement. So in English you use subject, verb, and then object. But now in KSL it's the other way around.
Oh.
Yeah.
So is it a bit sometimes maybe challenging to get to correlate the two?
Yeah, and sometimes it's you feel like maybe you are saying a bad thing, or maybe you are breaking the law of English. You see, when you are a normal person and maybe you are used to speaking fluent English, and then when it gets to you personally breaking the law, you feel like you are doing the wrong thing. And then sometimes it can also affect you. You get yourself, you're just speaking broken English, like you can't even speak the very fluent English you used to speak. Yeah, that is the effect I've seen so far.
Awesome. And maybe to the people who are interested maybe to get to interact with deaf persons, what is your take on how you get to interact with them? Their differences, how is it?
Deaf people, before they used to say that deaf people are bad people. They are bad people. They have emotions. They can even beat you up. That one I can really tell you, it is not the truth. Yeah, it is not the truth. That is fake information. Deaf people are very good people. When you get to know each other well, you just start being a friend to a deaf person, and I'm telling you, they are the best, very honest people on earth I've ever seen. Like if they are feeling angry, they'll just tell you I'm angry, and yes, and you will just even see the facial expression, and if they are happy, they just tell you we are happy about. So they are very direct. It's not like these normal people who are maybe they are sad and they are pretending they are happy. No, they are just good people and honest people. Yeah.
And there's also a notion out there that it is sign language interpreters who think or talk for deaf persons. Can you clarify?
No, actually it is wrong. I think people think it's in a wrong way, and because you can't interpret what you've not heard. You have to hear first for you to interpret. Yes, before hearing or seeing maybe what a deaf person is signing, you can't really say your own things. So we only interpret basing on what the person is saying. We don't create our own ways. Okay, you can see maybe we are creating our own ways because of the English, but it's not it's not a real thing. We normally change their English to their KSL to English. That is why maybe you can see maybe we have a difference, but it's not a difference. It's just because we add, for example, I am, for say they just point am. They point am, and for you will say I am. So that is where we get the difference, and maybe the people are like they're adding their own words. No, we don't add our own words. Yeah. And
how do you get to balance the sign language interpretation in campus, outside campus, and your studies as well?
I normally, this is how I do it. Like, for example, when I have days, like for example, I have days which I get to meet with deaf people. I have a timetable. Like I have a specific day, I just have to go and see a deaf person.
Wow.
Yes, that day is meant for a deaf person. So I have a timetable. I have time to do my studies, time to go and meet a deaf person, just even if it's just on the road. I just know if I walk along the street, actually because I've done sign language, I'll meet a deaf person. So I normally have my timetable which I use for my studies and for my everything.
Wow. That's very nice. And maybe what new have you learned, apart from, I know when we're in school we learn a lot of things, but now when you get to the actual ground, maybe have you been in a deaf interpretation class? How is it, and what new have you learned from what you've learned in school when you are training?
I've learned a lot of things. Like before, I was so weak in signing terms related to politics and the democracy. I was not that fluent in signing them, but especially, I don't know, was it last month when I joined the class for the deaf students? It was really amazing because I got to learn a lot of new terms, new terminologies, also how to bring the concept to a deaf person to understand, especially during explanation. Maybe the lecturer is teaching and then you have to explain to the deaf person. So I got to capture how I can deliver my message to a deaf person, to a deaf students particularly. Yeah.
And you as Anne, how would you tell us on the reasonable accommodation the university gives deaf students maybe?
The University of Nairobi is an inclusive institution which brings in anyone, like it brings people who are really interested in knowing what deaf people are doing, and so it accommodates interpreters, and the interpreters help to create an enabling environment for these students who have special needs, especially for the deaf. For me, because I'm an interpreter and I've seen it, they employ interpreters who help the students to come and pursue their education. And I'm telling you, even I've been in a class whereby a deaf student asks a question which a normal student can't even ask. So I'm like, hey, how comes this deaf student is asking this hard question, and we are only using sign language, and we have an hearing students who doesn't even capture anything. So it is really amazing for deaf students to study through interpretation.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And maybe how do other students view it? As in those students without disabilities, you are in the same class setup?
Yeah, they are very, like, they come to me and ask me questions. They are like, how can you do that? Like, they don't even understand. You can really interpret for a deaf students to understand what the lecturer is saying. So they tend to ask me to tell me what I really interpret. Like, they really want to know how. So I'm like, I can't even, how do I explain to them that this is it is just translation, like I'm only translating what the lecturer is saying to get to the deaf students as a way of breaking barrier.
Yeah, nice one. So maybe if a student is outside there doing their own courses, will you advise them to pursue sign language as an extra course?
Yes, actually, I think for me, I can even advocate for sign language to be included in the curriculum of everyday activities for us to make these deaf people feel they really have a lot of advantages to our community, because sign language will be, because we have Kiswahili, English on the timetables, right? For me, I feel the sign language should be compulsory in schools, because if it is compulsory, we will not have to have these gaps between the hearing and the deaf people, because we will be getting to know their cultures, we'll be getting to know how they do their things and everything. So if they advocate for sign language to be in curriculum, it can really help. And then for those people who really feel like studying sign language, for me it's the best thing that has ever happened to me, because every day I get new experiences, I get to learn new things, different cultures. Yeah.
Oh, wow. And actually, I've perfectly said, in the Constitution of Kenya, Article 54 talks about inclusion, and basically Article 54 1C that talks on accessibility in form of sign language and braille. And so as it's being enshrined in the Kenyan Constitution, it's very key as well for the university to consider it, maybe as a common unit, we would say, so that we break this barrier. Whether you are a teaching staff, non-teaching staff, or student, you can get to communicate with a deaf person.
Yes, true.
Yes, and maybe what about staff? Are there any deaf staff at the university you've interacted with?
Actually, there is a staff with deaf. I think I've met like 3.
Oh, okay.
Yes. And I was I didn't imagine I can meet maybe a deaf person who is an engineer, and he's working so perfectly, and you can even see the work he's doing is very perfect. I didn't before I got into sign language, I didn't even imagine that I can meet a deaf person who is so perfect, like you see, and you can even see like he gets recommendation, he has to work, and he's working so perfectly. Yeah, so and I can see even the University of Nairobi I think it has enabled many people with disabilities to come and work with them, which is a very good idea.
And lastly, maybe you said you are attached in the disability liaison office. So how has it been? Do students, how they get to interact, how the policies are applied at the university?
Yeah, I can say yes. The Disability Liaisons Office, it really deals with people with disabilities. And for me, I've seen like maybe students who have disabilities come into office. Maybe he has an issue, or maybe he's facing the challenges. He normally gets a solution at the end of the day, because we have an office and we have the leaders there who always help in time of need. So for me, I can say the Disability Liaisons Office is really working. Yeah, according to me. Like if you compare the University of Nairobi with other institutions, I can say the University of Nairobi is at par. Yeah.
Oh, wow. So your opinion, is the university management doing enough to enforce disability inclusion?
I can say yes, it is trying, but not enough. Actually, for me, I can say it is just trying, but it is not enough. I feel like there are still some gaps which the university must work on. Yeah, the university must work on, like for example, on interpretation services. You see, interpretation is a skill, and you have to get the exact words of how you will interpret to a particular student for the person to understand. So I feel like because we have timetables and we also have students who are deaf and are learning, the interpreters are less, because you find like an interpreter has more than 3 classes in a day, and it's the mind which is working. For me, I feel the interpreters really get tired. Yes, that is just my opinion, because I've seen they are really overworking. Yeah, that is my opinion. So the university must at least make some advancements. Yeah.
Being in your final year, so maybe Anne can tell us, after you're done, maybe with your work study, you've graduated, how do you foresee Anne in sign language and maybe in her career as well?
In my careers and as me, Anne, I feel like I'm working on a project because I've seen like children, we can say, like from my perspective when I was young, I saw how kids grew up and how they were isolated from the community and how they grew up, maybe they are getting not information. So for me, I'm working on a project which will help these children to get to be equal to other hearing community by seeing how I can help them get the information before even they get to school. Yes, that is what I'm working in. And then in my career ways, I really want to advocate for sign language. Like people should access, they should have that, I think they have a right to information, right?
Yes.
Yes, for me, I want to advocate for sign language because that is, I feel as a human being, because I have feelings, there is no way there is information, but you can't get the information. Yeah, so for me, that is what I want to venture in. Yeah.
Wow, that's wonderful. As you've heard from Anne, she's shared with us her experiences as a sign language interpreter working on work study, and she's even taken it further to work and interact with deaf people outside there. Actually, communication is very key for any person, and even for these deaf persons who are within the university fraternity, may it be students, staff, or any person who walks in. Communication is key, and it is our call to everyone that let us try to learn something that you can communicate to the deaf person. The same way Anne has just said, deaf persons are not weird people. They are not mad people. They are people who are ready for you to interact with. Just say hi, learn a word, get to talk, break the communication barrier. And in case you don't know where to get someone to assist you and you have met a deaf person, you can still reach out to the Disability Liaison Office, as Anne has rightly put it, whereby we have got services of sign language interpreters that will reach out and will be able to support you. So for us today, I want to say thank you so much for being part of this show, Anne. Maybe you can give us your parting shot as we close.
My parting shot is welcome to the world of sign language, whereby we get to learn different cultures, we get to get different experiences, and we get to know how the world can operate with equality in communication.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you. And that is on disability inclusion. We all say we fit and we can. Thank you.
UNC TV, empowering you.